the remover of difficulties. والله هل من مفرج غير الله قل سبحان الله هو الله كل عباد له وكل بأمره قائمون.
Mayroon bang ibang tagapag-alis ng mga kahirapan liban sa Diyos? Sabihin, purihin ang Diyos, siya ang Diyos. Ang lahat ay kanyang mga tagapagsilbi at ang lahat ay sumusunod sa kanyang mga utos.
Pitahatin man kespichita, yaki kunas manta, Dios manta stawan. Ni yupay chas kakachun, apuyaya Dios, pay apuyaya Dios. Tukuy paypah kamachisnin kanche, hinata tukuy ninchis paypah kamachinin pikanche.
God mama anu, nagsoy ono o han hayamasi o, nagsoy ono o han totorita hamatan wa o, narasisi no manya iyo arahanu, orihay no taray o God.
Nog gersau erfere erleikum nemagu say Lord seguri hanergu atlir þjónar hans og allir lúta boðum hans.
ከእግዚአብሔር በስተቀር ችግርን የሚያስወግድ አለ ወይ? በል ለእግዚአብሔር ምስጋና ይድረሰው፣ እርሱ አምላክ ነው። ሁሉም አገልጋዮቹ ናቸው፣ ሁሉም በትእዛዙ ይኖራሉ።
Бурхнаас өөр зовлон зүдгүүрийг арилгагч байна уу? Бурхан Тэнгэр минь бадарtuга. Таал Бурхан багш үлээ. Хамаг амтан таны шадар зарц үлээ. Хамаг амтан таны үгийг дагдаг үлээ.
Ukhona longasusa tona ngaphandle kwaNkulunkulu na. Thani Makathunyiswe uNkulunkulu ngoba uNkulunkulu. Bonke batisebenti takhe. Bonke balandzela imitsetfo yakhe.
God yet he can rouse him all trouble. He get narrow pela something he can make him this pela walk. Talk us him. Lift him up him name belong God. Emieti God. All get a people he walkmen belong him. Now all get a he behind him talk belong him.
Finns det någon befriare från svårigheter utom Gud? Säg, prisad vare Gud, han är Gud. Alla är hans tjänare och alla håller fast vid hans bud.
Je nejaký vysloboditeľ z ťažkostí okrem Boha? Volajte, chválený nech je Boh. On je Boh. Všetci sú jeho služobníkmi a všetci sa riadia jeho príkazom.
Quem remova as dificuldades a não ser Deus. Dize, louvado seja Deus, Ele é Deus. Todos são seus servos e todos aquecem ao seu mandamento.
Sortu purumang fudangra sanide boitigado. Taki grani jigado, eng nagado, alamala na eng dinari, na nga alamala e hori, na eng komanderi.
Is daar enige verwedenaar van moeilijkheden en problemen buiten God? Ons prys die Here. Hij is God. Almal is sy diensnegte en almal luister na sy leerling.
Iza mua fatendemant en ma vundem sart. Lazau, hu de reinanie an demant. Israelian no an demant. Panupne afkun zavaboaret. Arts met miaknam fitundan joret jo.
어려움을 없애주시는 분의 하느님밖에 누가 또 있을까? 이렇게 말을 하여라 하느님께 찬송드리옵나이다. 그분은 하느님이시옵나이다. 모두가 그분의 종이오며 모두가 그분의 명령에 따르고 있었나이다.
Zanfungası zambı Ahne cenmincük mise Jona zambı aboduma Nyeta manı zambı Bien bese binebe bove 아주 메스 잡아가는 콤바는 외유는
So obi wɔ hɔ a ɔpa ahokyerɛ gu ka Onyankopɔn ka sɛ animuonyam ka Onyame ɔyɛ Onyame ampa abɔdeɛ nyinaa yɛ no nkoa na deɛ ɔpɛ na ne nkoa yɛ ma no
ta miên nẹn cầm chặt cái đấy tục vì bát tiết rư cà pi prang chia chẳng sớm sạch cái đấy so xa chủ miền tal prang ăn chia mà chẳng dân nhóm tu prang bằng côm tăng ông cái ni chia nẹn bầm ra rồi bằng prang ăn hai nâng ai chia nẹn có rụp pro hết bắt ta mới rồi bằng prang ông to riêng ở tàu ơi.
The year is 1900. Scandal surrounds the Belgian king Leopold II. Long respected as a promoter of scientific research in Africa and patron of efforts to civilize natives on that continent. King Leopold has been personally entrusted with the government of the Congo Free State. His stated aim has been philanthropic. However, recent reports indicate that the king has amassed vast personal wealth by exploiting the Congo's land, rubber, and ivory. At the same time, he has subjugated the local population through acts of extreme brutality, including mutilation. Governments and heads of state throughout Europe have expressed shock at the king's actions. It appears, however, that they were aware of the situation and failed to act until the recent disclosure of facts in the popular press. The territory has now been removed from the king's control. It is estimated that under King Leopold's rule, more than 1 million Congolese have starved, or have been killed, or worked to death.
No, Dr. John, no. You must stop right now. This is not the proper behavior of a girl. I forbid you. Okay, what man would marry you if he know that you want to read and write? Akhtar was a good daughter. She obeyed me. But I will never forget the look on her eyes. Of course, I felt bad. But I was thinking only about her future. Anyway, she went back to the carpet weaving, and I heard no more about reading and writing business. One day, not too long, a Baha'i teacher honored me to have a cup of tea in our house. As we were sitting, a slight gust of wind came through the window, and from the over shelf up there, a piece of paper just flew down and landed right on the teacher's lap. I was embarrassed. Then I tried to pick it up, and he made a comment, "This is not bad handwriting. Whose is it?" I confessed, "Well, this is my daughter Achter's handwriting. She was trying to teach herself read and write." Then I had to put stop on it. "Why did you do that?" he asked. Baha'u'llah said, "This new day for girls and boys both need education." Then he told me all about Baha'i teaching on this matter. When he left, I vowed Baha'u'llah, if Akhtar wants to have education, she should have the opportunity. When I told her, how her eyes were shining. We are poor, but I provided whatever I could. And Akhtar was progressing very well. Well, after a while, the teachers came back and told me the friends in the city opened a school for girls Akhtar should attend. I wasn't agree the first time, but he said Akhtar could be trained as a teacher, and she could teach all the kids in a village. Well, he said, Baha'u'llah said, to be a teacher is a station of great honor. Would I stay in the way of providing something that is against our village? Well, when Akhtar left for the city for the study, she came up to me and, Agha Jan, she said very shyly, "I made this for you." I opened it. It was a beautiful prayer carpet and teaching of Baha'u'llah written all over. Oneness of mankind, oneness of God, oneness of religion. Beautiful. Akhtar will be back soon. And she's going to teach our kids in the school we're building. Yes. It is a humble beginning, but we could see it as a good way forward. Abdul Baha himself has written a tablet about our village and praised our effort and mentioned my Akhtar by name. Also, he said, we must learn how to love and serve not only the people in our village, but the whole world. We must not rest because we are building the foundation of new civilization. Someday, he said, the whole world gonna love each other, just like the Baha'is love each other in this village. Who can imagine that?
The year is 1912. The SS Titanic of the White Star Line, the largest ship ever built, has struck an iceberg and sunk during her maiden voyage from Southampton to New York. Dubbed the ship that even God couldn't sink, the Titanic was the last word in luxury and scientific achievement. Tragically, however, it has come to light that this floating palace was equipped with enough lifeboats for only half the number of people on board. Survivors report that people fell in masses into the frigid water, as the ship slid quietly into the sea. It is estimated that some 1,500 men, women, and children perished.
Perry, is that you?
Oh, yes. Hello, Emmett.
Good to see you again, old man. And congratulations on your triumph over that rascal Dr. Cook. You must feel quite vindicated now that you've been recognized as the real discoverer of the North Pole, eh?
Well, thank you, Emmett. Yes, well, it is good to have the controversy finally put to rest. Although I must say the whole affair has somewhat embittered the sweetness of my success.
So you're here to meet the great man from the East, too, are you?
Well, actually...
The Apostle of Peace? I was just presented to him, and it was the most singular experience. He took me firmly by the hand, looked me in the eye, and said, "Just as there is unity among the states in the United States, there can also be unity among all the nations in the world." What a preposterous notion. One marvels at how he came up with such an idea, living in prison in the outreaches of the Ottoman Empire. One also wonders what on earth he's doing in this country at all, considering his advanced age.
And then Abdu'l-Baha pointed to me and said, "I appoint you, Lua, to be the herald of the covenant." The words hit me like a thunderclap. Me, my lord. The room seemed to be rocking like a ship in a tempest. I was blinded by the light that flashed from his eyes. Was there fire all around? Everything seemed ablaze. His voice rang through the roaring in my ears, and as if from a great distance I heard him say, "I am the covenant appointed by Baha'u'llah. Now you must go out and proclaim to everyone, this is the covenant of God in your midst." And then the veils burned away, and I truly saw the Master in his servitude and his glory. "Oh, recreate me," I begged. "Oh, Master, recreate me so that I may do this work for thee."
Quite the press of people in the reception room, eh?
Yes, of all sorts by the look of it.
Yes. Word has it that he is very liberal in his approach. They say he spoke to the Negro students at Howard University this morning, and that there was a bit of a sensation involving a colored man at the luncheon just prior to the reception.
Yes, an astonishing incident. Total lack of protocol. Apparently the gentleman was conversing with one of his followers from the city, a Negro man named Gregory. And when he noticed that the man hadn't been invited to the luncheon, he just swept aside all the place cards, rearranged them to his own satisfaction, placing this Gregory to the right in the seat of honor.
Egad, quite awkward for everyone present, I suppose.
Well, that's just it. That's how astonishing it was. He just continued on as if a colored person would sit at such a table any day of the week, and made everyone else present feel the same way too. Extraordinary.
In your explorations, you've eaten with your colored man Henson on occasion, I suppose?
Well, yes, of course, but it was entirely different. Circumstances were, we were on our way to the North Pole. The conditions were primitive, to say the least. Quite a contrast to here, Emick. Look, Henson's a good man. I couldn't have made it to the North Pole without him, I freely admit it. But, naturally, our social circumstances are worlds apart now that we're back in civilization again.
Speaking of the pole, did this Abdu'l-Baha compliment you on your great victory?
Well, yes, he did. As a matter of fact, I was impressed by how au courant he is on a number of subjects I wouldn't have expected an Oriental to be informed at all.
So he congratulated you then?
Yes, he was extremely charming. He seemed to be aware of my many attempts to reach the pole. He even praised the diligence of my efforts. although you can never tell with the Orientals. He discoursed most sweetly on the North Pole and how the world had been concerned with it for a very long time, where it was, what exactly was there, and he said that the strangest thing, he said that I should embark on an exploration to explore the mysteries of the kingdom of God. Whatever do you make of that, Hemmick?
When Abdu'l-Baha came to America, none of us knew how to regard him. It wasn't until that day when he announced himself as the center of the covenant that we had a glimmer of understanding about his true station. He is the branch extended from the ancient root of the tree of life. He is the center of the covenant of God, and he who turns to him has turned to me. I looked around the room at friends and strangers alike, and I thought, we have all been recreated just by the fact that we are here listening to this. How can our lives ever be the same again?
The year is 1927. In Europe, the value of the German mark has plummeted to more than 4 trillion to the dollar. The stability of Germany's Weimar Republic is threatened. The life savings of ordinary citizens have been wiped out. Authorities blame the soaring inflation rate on the provisions of the Treaty of Versailles. The treaty fixed Germany's liability for the Great War in Europe at 132 billion gold marks. In this climate, the extreme right-wing views of the National Socialist German Workers' Party have gained popular acceptance. The Nazis' recent attempt to take over the government has been put down, and their leader, Adolf Hitler, has been jailed for treason. The Republic is becoming increasingly fragile.
It was during my stay in Bucharest in 1926 that I decided to approach the American minister about an audience to present the Baha'i message to Queen Marie of Romania. Oh, he was skeptical. Miss Root, he said, oh, it is utterly impossible. The Queen is not seeing anyone. I wasn't convinced. So I prayed about it. And then I sent her a copy of Baha'u'llah in the New Era with a brief note. And the next day, a letter of invitation came from the palace. Oh, how beautiful she was. And from her eyes flashed the light of a great spirit. And after she had greeted me, she said,
I believe these teachings are the solution for the world's problems today.
Oh, how I loved her from that first moment. Our conversation was heavenly. And she began to write about the faith right away. Her articles appeared in more than 200 newspapers in the United States and Canada.
The other day, a woman brought me a book. I spell it with a capital letter because it is a glorious book of love and goodness, strength and beauty. It was the word of Abdu'l-Baha, prophet of love and kindness, and of his father, the great teacher of international goodwill and understanding, of a religion which links all creeds. It is a wondrous message.
And the appearance of the Queen's article was a wonderful surprise. I immediately wrote to thank her, and she was so gracious. She replied,
the beautiful truth of Baha'u'llah is with me always. What I wrote for the syndicates was because my heart overflowed with gratitude for the revelation you brought me. I am happy if you think it helped.
Helped? Oh, to have a member of royalty write such things about the faith? It opened so many doors. Oh, and how it touched the heart of the guardian. Throughout the years, she wrote many more affirmations of her love for the cause.
The Baha'i teachings brings peace and understanding. More than ever today, when the world is facing such a crisis of bewilderment and unrest, must we stand firm in faith, seeking that which binds together instead of tearing asunder. To those searching for a light, the Baha'i teachings offer a star that will lead them to deeper understanding, to assurance, to peace, and goodwill with all men.
Queen Marie received me 8 times over the next 12 years, the first monarch to accept the teachings of Baha'u'llah. Oh, people ask me how I dared to approach her or the other leaders I've met in my travels around the world. Well, it's difficult to explain. But when I first saw the tablets of the Divine Plan in 1919, I felt somehow that Abdul-Baha was speaking directly to me, to my heart. They weren't just words. They were directions for life. So my travels began, and with each step I have taken, it has been just as Abdul-Baha said when he told me to go around the world and roar out the call of the divine kingdom. He promised all ears are alert for the summons to the most great peace. Thou shalt witness great results and extraordinary confirmations. And after the Master, the beloved guardian too. Persevere, he said, and never lose heart. And so, I never have.
The year is 1956. Under the auspices of the United Nations, the world's first international peacekeeping force is on its way to Egypt to quell the recent crisis at the Suez Canal, which it is feared could lead to a third world war. With the agreement of all parties involved, the United Nations Emergency Force will attempt to stabilize the danger zone with words rather than weapons. Force members are relying on the moral authority of the United Nations and the support of the international community for the success of their mission. The Suez Canal crisis is the latest test of internationalism that has gripped the globe since the end of World War II. The United Nations and its affiliates have been successful in fields such as health and the relief of refugees and children, but keeping the peace is proving to be a more formidable task, particularly in the current political climate of the Cold War.
See you in 1963. See you at the World Congress in London. That's what my friends and I shouted to each other as I stepped onto the plane, a 10-year crusade pioneer. The idea of being a knight in a crusade had a certain romantic appeal to it. But I confess my heart sank a little when the island that was to be my post came into view. It looked very small, and the ocean looked very, very big. Figuring I wanted to start things out right, the first words I said as I stepped off the plane in a loud voice were, Ya Baha'u'llah Baha. Then I looked around, and it hit me. I was the only Baha'i for thousands of miles. I just said a remover of difficulties and carried on. As a matter of fact, I said a lot of remover of difficulties. I thought it would be easy to teach the cause. Surely people would be curious about this stranger that had just suddenly appeared in their midst. And indeed they were. Or perhaps suspicious would be a better word.
I was painting the big old Catholic church on Main Street when I noticed a stranger standing at the foot of my ladder.
Hi, can I give you a hand up there?
Oh, no. I can't pay you, man.
Oh, that's okay. I'll do it for nothing.
Must be that strange fella, they say, jump off the plane, shouting some strange foreign words. You must be some kind of missionary. Are you a Catholic?
No, I'm a Baha'i.
Oh. Well then, what kind of Baha'i are you? Catholic Baha'i or Protestant Baha'i?
That's how it was on the island. You're either one thing or another, which made teaching the faith very difficult.
After he told me about not being a Catholic and not being a Protestant, I was curious. I wanted to find out what else there might be. So I asked him many questions. Until one day, I realized that I believe all these teachings and that I want to be a Baha'i too. My friends and my family was upset, but I can't deny that which I know is true.
It was a great day. We sat down together and composed a letter to the Guardian, telling him that this first declaration was a direct answer to his prayers.
I waited impatiently for a reply, but none arrived.
Instead, in mid-November, a letter came saying that the Guardian had passed away in London. A huge wave of grief washed over me. I felt as though I was cast adrift. What was the faith without Shoghi Effendi? Eventually, I realized he had given us everything we needed to carry on.
Over the years, my friend and I continued to study the faith together.
Yes, and to tell others about it too. A few more people became Baha'is, and we had a few visitors, but most of the time we felt quite alone.
Now, what was this Baha'i world that I had read and heard so much about? I wanted to find out for myself, and in 1963, the opportunity arrived. I decided to go to London with my friend to the Baha'i World Congress. Oh, how can I describe the World Congress? It was
as if God had arranged to bring heaven and earth just a little bit closer together for those few short days.
After we come off the underground and was walking towards the Albert Hall, I could see people in all sorts of cloth, all colors, shapes, sizes, all ages, speaking all sorts of languages, laughing and hugging each other.
It was a shock after all those years on the island. I just stood there and stared, tears streaming down my face. This was the world community envisioned by Baha'u'llah. And here I was to see it with my own eyes.
And then, when the Universal House of Justice was presented, when they came out onto the stage, we all, everybody, stood.
And I visited the Guardian's grave. I took a shell that I had picked up on the beach near my cottage, a piece of my pioneer post, and I laid it among the stones on the path as I said a prayer of thanks.
I had heard some of the pioneers talking about leaving their posts now that the crusade was over. The thought of saying goodbye to my Baha'i brother filled me with sorrow. With a heavy heart,
he asked me if I was planning to return to my home or to go back with him to the island. I had been thinking about what to do, but it wasn't until that moment that I knew the answer. I patted the shirt pocket above my heart where I carried a letter from Shoghi Effendi, and I thought about the Universal House of Justice standing on their stage, ready to take up its great task. And I knew with a certainty that home was my post, and I would go back there with my dear friend.
The year is 1979. Condemnations of apartheid and calls for sanctions against the South African government are mounting throughout the world with the announcement of the death of that country's anti-apartheid activist Stephen Biko while in police custody. The last major stronghold of a racist apartheid form of government, South Africa has been excluded from the United Nations General Assembly since 1974. It is also barred from other UN organs and conferences, from the British Commonwealth, and from most specialized agencies and intergovernmental organizations. The South African case has shown both the limits and the possibilities of using international forums to address human rights violations in a country where the rights of the majority of its population are virtually non-existent.
The Baha'i international community deeply regrets that, again this year, it must draw to the attention of the United Nations Commission on Human Rights the continuing violation of the human rights of the Baha'is in Iran.
The people of Iran have risen according to exhortation of Quran, establish with the will of Allah on earth. They cannot tolerate the misguided Baha'is who are instruments of Satan.
Since the Islamic Revolution, Iran's 300,000 Baha'is have been the object of an official campaign of persecution that has been described by independent observers as religious genocide.
I admonish all the Baha'is, take shelter under the shadow of Islam. While it's not too late, recant Bahaism, and the day will come soon, inshallah, will fulfill the prayer of Noah, who said, Lord, leave not one single family of infidel on earth.
My dearest husband, Hushang, I hope that you are well and that the guards had given you the package of food and medicine I left at the prison last week. The children send their kisses. They are fine, but they find it difficult not to be able to go to school. Of course, we all miss you very much, but we hope that your spirit is strong. You are in our hearts and our prayers.
During the course of this campaign, Baha'is in Iran have been deprived of their fundamental human rights. They have been imprisoned, tortured, and executed because of their religious beliefs.
Baha'is are not arrested only for Bahaism. Those who are active members of administration or in contact with their house of justice, you clearly infidel and fight against Allah are arrested. These are crimes for which they will be tried and punished.
The Baha'i community in Iran has no protection against the government's campaign because the courts have ruled that Baha'is are unprotected infidels. As a result, Baha'is do not enjoy even the most fundamental of all human rights, the right to life.
My dear wife, it is 5 minutes to midnight. The Revolutionary Court has told us to prepare for execution. I want you to know at these moments, I feel a great tranquility of conscience, confidence of heart, and firmness of belief. The 2 bracelets that I made for the children are in my short sleeve shirt in the prison. And there is a ring for you in a pocket of a jacket I'm wearing.
We know that the case of the Baha'is in Iran is only one among many, that there are countless individuals and communities throughout the world who suffer equally serious violations of their human rights. For that reason, Baha'i communities everywhere are working to break down barriers of prejudice and to champion human rights and peace.
Oh, my dearest Mahshid, please know that during all our years of marriage, I wished for no other companion than you. Kiss the children for me. I will pray that you will continue to serve our beloved faith and will be content with the will of God. I thank Baha'u'llah that He has granted me this final, overwhelming blessing. My dearest wife, are you well pleased with me?
The year is 1984. After 6 years of investigation, the World Commission on the Environment and Development, the Brundtland Commission, has published its final report, Our Common Future. If the world pays attention, we may just have to rearrange our thinking about our approach to development work around the planet. The Commission was tasked to look at critical environmental and development issues and propose the means for the global community to address them. Through conversations with people from all walks of life about living conditions, resources, population pressures, international trade, education, and health, the Commission concluded that in most people's view, there is no division between environmental, social, and economic issues. The Commission's concept of sustainable development has given rise to a major shift in the accepted approach, which focuses on the provision of financial and material aid often given at the convenience of donor nations. The Brundtland Commission has recognized that all people deserve the chance to be participants in shaping their own futures.
Refugee!
Refugee. It is not an easy word. Everybody thinks poor, dirty, lazy, always taking, never giving, and they don't belong anywhere. That is how I used to think. Never did I imagine that I would be a refugee. When the war started, some friends and I were returning from the capital, Monrovia, to our homes, which was near the border with Ivory Coast. As we got closer, the situation became very bad. The bus driver refused to go any further, so we began to walk. We came across people running in the opposite direction, shouting at us to turn around and run. The rebel soldiers, they are killing anyone from our tribe that they can find. So we went into the bush, and we were creeping along as quietly as we could, when suddenly we were surrounded by soldiers with machetes and guns, machetes.
Who are you? Where do you come from?
Where are you from, you spies?
My heart was in my mouth, and I prayed to Baha'u'llah to help us. No, we are not spies. We're Baha'is.
Listen to this one. He thinks he's a poet. Not spies, Baha'is. Not spies, Baha'is.
There was this soldier. He was not older than my little brother. But his eyes, when I looked into his eyes, they were empty. No pity. No feelings. I looked into the barrel of his gun, and I was sure that I was dead. And then, the older one, who seemed to be their leader, he came and he looked at us very closely.
Baha'i? As in Radio Baha'i?
Yes, Radio Baha'i. Then he looked at us for a long moment, and then he told the others, motioned to them, to lower their guns.
Radio Baha'i is good. Everybody knows that Radio Baha'i tells the truth. You may go.
We ran as fast as we could. The war had not reached our village, but since danger was not far, we decided, the Baha'i community decided, that we should go across the border into Ivory Coast until the situation changed. Now, in the place where we settled, there were no Baha'is, and the local villagers did not want us there. We told their chief that we are Baha'is, and we're here not only to look after ourselves, but also to serve all the people in the area. He just looked at us like we are crazy. Who ever heard of refugees helping anybody? But our local spiritual assembly directed our work. Our goal was to be self-sufficient. So we started some little agricultural projects. We farmed the land around the village with 9 hoes, 9 shovels, and 3 watering cans. The women started a chicken farm. The men and the youth dug fish ponds. We started a school for the children, and during their recess, they tended the garden. It was hard work, but it was good to work together. And then one day, the chief came to us. He said, "Ants are very small, but they are so united in their work that they can build ant hills as strong and as tall as a man. You Baha'is are like ants, the way you work together. I believe this Baha'i faith is a good thing for my village." And a little while later, he became a Baha'i, and so did many of his people. Later on, the Baha'is of Ivory Coast, they found us, and they came with medicines and clothes and love and encouragement. And then, the most wonderful thing, the counselor came to see us. He said, "I have something special for you. The Universal House of Justice has written you a letter. To think that the Supreme Body knew of our situation, that they cared for a small handful of refugees. And when they told us that they said prayers for us in our difficulties, you know, when you go through agony, you get close to God. We had these teachings before the war, but we did not use them in the same way. It was not until we came through the bush with nothing that we experienced the power of this cause to sustain us and to transform us. so that even a small handful of refugees can live in dignity.
The year is 1989. The wall has come tumbling down. The Berlin Wall, that grim symbol of communist rule, is no more. The East German government has opened its gates and allowed its citizens to pass freely to the other side, where they were greeted by thousands of cheering West Berliners. Built in 1961 to stem the massive tide of people fleeing from the communist East, the wall has been a potent symbol of Cold War divisions in Europe. A formidable barrier, some 100 people have perished trying to escape over it. But on November 9th, 1989, many East Berliners celebrated their new freedom by climbing the hated wall and dancing on top of it. It appears that the era of concrete walls and iron curtains has passed. The challenge now is to learn how to live together.
It is my habit to go out and walk in the night, to get away from our flat, which is very small and filled with too many people. My father's friends drinking their endless bottles of vodka, talking their endless talk about how much better life was under the old system. I tell you, they have short memories. But if I remind them of this, then we get into another big argument, and my mother becomes upset, and my father starts to curse me, and my grandmother wakes up and starts to moan, and then I say things that I should not. So it is better to go out and walk in the night. Then at least I can think. But sometimes that is not so good either. What has happened to my family, to my country, I ask myself. What is the meaning of it? Poems and songs used to run around in my head, begging to be written down. But now, it has been months since I have picked up my guitar. Who can sing in such a place? It was in such a state that I found myself looking through a window of a small library on one of my walks. It was filled with people who were laughing and singing and talking and generally having a very good time. It was not my mood at all. I turned to go, and a woman came up to me and said, "Hello there," in English. Oh, American, I thought. Yes. Well, perhaps it is an English class, and my English was not so good. So I thought maybe I'd practice with her for a few minutes. That is when I first heard the strange and the mysterious word, Baha'i, for the first time. Baha'i, Baha'i. It had a certain magic to it. But I told her bluntly, I was not interested in religion. She said, "That is fine. Why not come inside and join us for some discussion and music and refreshments anyway? No pressure." "No, thank you," I said, and hurried off. I cannot explain why I found myself walking back down the same street the next night. Or the next. Or the next. The people inside were mostly English speakers and a few of my gullible young countrymen. Taki and naivni. They clearly needed to be brought back down to earth. You come here with your utopian teachings. You have no idea how we in the Soviet Union have suffered. What it is like to live in a country which is collapsing like a house of cards, where nothing is left. No vision, no foundation, no future. How dare you come here, talk to us about world unity and peace? Night after night, they let me have my say. But clearly, I was not getting through to them. It was not that they were naive or stupid. No, they were quite intelligent, except for this belief of theirs. I could not figure them out. One night, after one of my objections, which I admit was a little long and perhaps a little loud, a young Russian guy took a small booklet out of his pocket and said, "Sergei, you have done a lot of talking here. Now, would you be so kind as to let me read you one of my favorite stories?" I could not see what this had to do with the topic at hand, but I nodded. He opened the book and began to read. "There was once a lover who sighed for long years, searching for his beloved, and wasted in the fire of remoteness. He read on and on, the story of this tormented man searching desperately for his beloved, being chased through the streets by a watchman. And when he had done, he turned to me and said very quietly, 'Sergei, do you not think it is possible that what we in the Soviet Union have most feared, and what we have been trying to escape, just might be the watchman in this story? And do you not think it is possible that this is what you have found here? That this is your story too?'" The room was silent. How can I explain what happened in that moment? It was as if a door opened in my soul. All I know is that the poems are coming back to me. I even hear the music in my head again as I am walking. And I think that the future will sing its own song. Усім буйтія возлюби меня, даб я мог полюбить тебя. Если ты не возлюбишь меня, то никогда не достигнет моя любовь тебя. Знай это, о слуга, знай это, о слуга.
The year is 2001. While doomsayers' predictions about the end of the world failed to materialize, and the Y2K bug proved less lethal than the common cold, the turn of the century did witness what may someday be regarded as three historically significant events: a Millennium Summit of government leaders and heads of state, a Millennium World Peace Summit of religious and spiritual leaders, and a Millennium Forum for non-governmental organizations. Countries around the world showed their commitment to dialogue on peace at the Millennium Summit by the turnout of 150 heads of state and government, the largest number ever assembled. Some 1,000 spiritual leaders represented every major world religion at their summit, and representatives of more than 1,000 non-governmental organizations from 100 countries participated in the Millennium Forum. The events marked the culmination of a decade of international gatherings sponsored by the United Nations on issues of global concern.
Hola, amigos. Hola. ¿Cómo estás? It's so good to see you here. I am going to tell you a story about a cow. Sí, es la verdad, a cow. What? You are probably thinking, why is she wasting our time at a gathering like this by talking about a cow? I can assure you it is very important. In my pueblo, before I came here, we bought a cow. And I can tell you, it was a very spiritual process. Escuchen. First, the Baha'is called a meeting of everyone in our pueblo to consult about the health of our children, and we decided that it would be good for them to have fresh milk, yeah? So we should buy a cow. We could not qualify to get a loan from the bank to buy the cow, but we knew that our Baha'i Institute is part of a microcredit project. So we applied, and they said yes, we could get the loan to buy the cow, but only after we had taken a couple of courses. One was a course on how to manage the cow. Well, that made sense to everybody. But the other one was on spiritual qualities. Well, a few of the men, they said, "Este loco, what kind of spiritual qualities do you need to buy a cow? We are not going to take a course like that." We had a big discussion, and for a while there was so much disagreement it looked like we wouldn't get the cow after all. But then, old Senora Lopez, she stood up and said, "What is wrong with learning about spiritual qualities? It seems to me that in recent years, in our pueblo, those values have gone to sleep. Maybe the course will help to wake them up again. Love and unity between us must come first, not material things." The whole room was quiet after she spoke. Everybody realized she was right. And after we finished the course, we all saw that we could never have worked together to buy the cow and care for her without all of us understanding things like trustworthiness and honesty. So, if buying a cow is such a spiritual process, we thought, what about the education of los niños? The training of our youth, the lives of our families, the development of our whole community. And so the Institute process has really changed the way we think about everything. Through study courses, we have come to see ourselves differently, as what we really are. Noble beings, people who can make things happen, make change happen. We are still crazy lovers of Baha'u'llah, but we are systematically crazy. Before, we saw ourselves as, as takers. We have become a community of givers. We aren't rich, but we have done our part to build these beautiful gardens, these majestic buildings. When I walked up the terraces yesterday, and I put my foot on each step, I thought, my people have given to build this. Maybe one step, maybe two, or three. We have been so blessed as to build the pathway of the kings. In all of history, no one else will be able to say that. It is so mysterious and beautiful how all of these processes are intertwined. All over the world, the leaders of the countries are learning to talk to each other, to find some kind of unity and solve their problems. People everywhere are searching for direction, trying to make a better life for themselves. And in our little village, we see how spiritual processes are part of everything, even buying a cow. Now, our Baha'i community and our local spiritual assembly are stronger, and our unity is beginning to attract others. And here at the heart of this holy mountain, at the end of this century of light, we can see how these Baha'i institutions can really shake the world, embrace the world, direct the world. I remember when I was a little girl at Easter Mass, and the Padre talked about the day when the New Jerusalem would come down from heaven. Oh, I remember how I felt. And now that day is here. The history of humankind has just begun. It's like a new book. What will we write on its pages?
Dear friends, in a few moments, we will be hearing a special message from the Universal House of Justice. In anticipation of this message, we will first have some music from two wonderful Baha'i musicians, Ron Allen and Gwendolyn Watson.
Dear Baha'i friends, 148 years have passed since the moment in the darkness of the Siyah-Chal when Baha'u'llah received the divine summons to rise and proclaim to all on earth the dawning of the day of God. Verily, we shall render thee victorious by thyself and by thy pen. Ere long, God will raise up the treasures of the earth, men who will aid thee through thyself and through thy name, wherewith God hath revived the hearts of such as have recognized him. In terms of historical time, it is but the briefest of spaces that separates that primal moment from the splendid victory we celebrate here this week. You, who have come together from every corner of the earth and from every segment of the human family, represent a cross-section of those whom Baha'u'llah has raised up to aid him. And no one among us can hope to express adequately the gratitude we feel at being in that company. The majestic buildings that now stand along the arc traced for them by Shoghi Effendi on the slope of the Mountain of God, together with the magnificent flight of garden terraces that embrace the shrine of the Bab, are an outward expression of the immense power animating the cause we serve. They offer timeless witness to the fact that the followers of Baha'u'llah have successfully laid the foundations of a worldwide community transcending all differences that divide the human race, and have brought into existence the principal institutions of a unique and unassailable administrative order that shapes this community's life. In the transformation that has taken place on Mount Carmel, the Baha'i cause emerges as a visible and compelling reality on the global stage, as the focal center of forces that will, in God's good time, bring about the reconstruction of society, and as a mystic source of spiritual renewal for all who turn to it. Reflection on what the Baha'i community has accomplished throws into heartbreaking perspective the suffering and deprivation engulfing the great majority of our fellow human beings. It is necessary that it should do so, because the effect is to open our minds and souls to vital implications of the mission Baha'u'llah has laid on us. Know thou of a truth, he declares. These great oppressions that have befallen the world are preparing it for the advent of the most great justice. God be praised, Abdul Baha adds. the sun of justice hath risen above the horizon of Baha'u'llah. For in his tablets, the foundations of such a justice have been laid, as no mind has from the beginning of creation conceived. In the final analysis, it is this divine purpose that our activities are intended to serve. And we will advance this purpose to the degree that we understand what is at stake in the efforts we are making to teach the faith, to establish and consolidate its institutions, and to intensify the influence it is exerting in the life of society. Humanity's crying need will not be met by a struggle among competing ambitions, or by protest against one or another of the countless wrongs afflicting a desperate age. It calls rather for a fundamental change of consciousness, for a wholehearted embrace of Baha'u'llah's teaching that the time has come when each human being on earth must learn to accept responsibility for the welfare of the entire human family. Commitment to this revolutionizing principle will increasingly empower individual believers and Baha'i institutions alike in awakening others to the day of God and to the latent spiritual and moral capacities that can change this world into another world. We demonstrate this commitment, Shoghi Effendi tells us, by our rectitude of conduct towards others, by the discipline of our own natures, and by our complete freedom from the prejudices that cripple collective action in the society around us and frustrate positive impulses towards change. The standards set out by the Guardian apply to the entire Baha'i community, both in its collective life and in the lives of its individual members. They hold, however, particular implications for Baha'i youth, who are blessed with the enviable advantages of high energy, flexibility of mind, and to a great extent, freedom of movement. The world that Baha'i youth are inheriting is one in which the distribution of educational, economic, and other basic opportunities is grossly unjust. Baha'i youth must not be daunted by such barriers. Their challenge is to understand the real condition of humanity and to forge among themselves enduring spiritual bonds that free them not only from racial and national divisions, but also from those created by social and material conditions, and that will fit them to carry forward the great trust reposed in them. Baha'u'llah encourages us to anticipate from the youth of his community a much earlier advance to maturity than is characteristic of the rest of society. Clearly, that does not in any way diminish the importance of the pursuit of education, of economic realities, or of family obligations. It does mean that Baha'i youth can accept and should be encouraged to accept a responsibility of their own for moral leadership and the transformation of society. In vindication of these words, we invoke the memory of the one whose shrine has today set the mountain of God ablaze with light, and the memory of the band of youthful heroes and heroines whose greatness of soul and sacrifice of self launched on its course the enterprise in which we are engaged. The achievement we are today celebrating brings into focus two paradoxical realities. Within the faith itself, the gathering strength of the Baha'i community presages a great surge forward, intimations of which are already everywhere apparent. Inevitably, as Shoghi Effendi several times emphasized, this advance will excite even more intense opposition than the cause has so far encountered. Opposition that will in turn release the greater forces needed for the still more demanding tasks that lie ahead. The world in which our efforts are taking place is likewise undergoing profound changes. On the one hand, the vast network of agencies and individuals that promote understanding and cooperation among diverse peoples affirms even more powerfully the growing recognition that the earth is but one country and mankind its citizens. On the other hand, it is equally clear that the world is moving through a period of social paralysis, tyranny, and anarchy. A period marked by the widespread neglect of both governmental and personal responsibility, the ultimate consequences of which no one on earth can foresee. The effect of both developments, as Shoghi Effendi also pointed out, will be to awaken in the hearts of those who share this planet with us a longing for unity and justice that can be met only by the cause of God. A long and arduous process of struggle, experimentation, and construction has led to the victories that lift our hearts as a new century opens. Through the rapidly proliferating system of institutes and the energy being invested everywhere in area growth strategies, the Baha'i community has moved swiftly to capitalize on what has been achieved. However deep may be the gloom enveloping the world, the future has never looked so bright for the prosecution of Baha'u'llah's mission. We who have been privileged to gather here this week have witnessed with our own eyes the dawning fulfillment of the words revealed by the Lord of hosts on this mountain over a century ago. Words which cause the very atoms of the earth to vibrate. Verily, this is the day in which both land and sea rejoice at this announcement, the day for which have been laid up those things which God, through a bounty beyond the ken of mortal mind or heart, hath destined for revelation. Such a privilege carries with it an equally great responsibility, the responsibility to do our part, whatever the sacrifice, whatever the difficulty, to see that the poignant desire expressed by Baha'u'llah on that historic occasion is fulfilled. Oh, how I long to announce unto every spot on the surface of the earth, and to carry to each one of its cities the glad tidings of this revelation. A revelation to which the heart of Sinai hath been attracted, and in whose name the burning bush is calling. Unto God, the Lord of lords, belong the kingdoms of earth and heaven. We all, with all the fervor of thankful hearts, we will pray at the holy threshold that Baha'u'llah will bless and confirm every effort you make to advance his purpose for the redemption of humankind and the healing of its ills. With loving Baha'i greetings, the Universal House of Justice.
I implore thee, O my Lord, by thine ark, through which the potency of thy will was manifested, and the energizing influences of thy purpose were revealed, and which saileth on both land and sea through the power of thy might, not to seize me in my mighty sins and great trespasses. I swear by thy glory, the waters of thy forgiveness and thy mercy have emboldened me. as hath thy dealing in bygone ages with the sincere among thy chosen ones, and with such of thy messengers as have proclaimed thy oneness. I am well aware, O my Lord, that I have been so carried away by the clear tokens of thy loving kindness, and so completely inebriated with the wine of thine utterance, that whatever I behold, I readily discover that it maketh thee known unto me, and it remindeth me of thy signs, and of thy tokens, and of thy testimonies. By thy glory, every time I lift up mine eyes unto thy heaven, I call to mind thy highness, and thy loftiness, and thine incomparable glory and greatness. And every time I turn my gaze to thine earth, I am made to recognize the evidences of thy power and the tokens of thy bounty. And when I behold the sea, I find that it speaketh to me of thy majesty, and of the potency of thy might, and of thy sovereignty and thy grandeur. And at whatever time I contemplate the mountains, I am led to discover the ensigns of thy victory and the standards of thine omnipotence. I swear by thy might, O thou in whose grasp are the reign of all mankind and the destinies of the nations. I am so inflamed by my love for thee, and so inebriated with the wine of thy oneness, that I can hear from the whispers of the winds the sound of thy glorification and praise, and can recognize in the murmur of the waters the voice that proclaimeth thy virtues and thine attributes, and can apprehend from the rustling of the leaves the mysteries that have been irrevocably ordained by thee in thy realm. Glorified art thou, O God of all names and creator of the heavens. I render thee thanks that thou hast made known unto thy servants this day, whereon the river that is life indeed hath flowed forth from the fingers of thy bounty, and the springtime of thy revelation and thy presence hath appeared through thy manifestation unto all who are in thy heaven and all who are on thy earth.